where it started, and that gave me the realisation, you know. So I kind of grew up very much in the left, you know, on the left wing. My family, my brothers actually were also union shop stewards and activists. So it's in my family. But even if it wasn't, I think I would still formulate the same opinions. You know.
When you started to be interested in music, like tape trading, collecting records, how important already at that point were the lyrics? Was it just something which is inevitable part of music, or you just follow the music?
I mean, I'm sure that it's the same as for everybody else here. You know, I mean, your natural human instinct is to gravitate towards sound first, because you don't actually have to necessarily directly interact with sound. It's there, you know, it's straight into your mind. And later on, I started to get an interest in the lyrics. I mean, the early stuff I was exposed to through my dad, which is like Deep Purple, Jimi Hendrix. Obviously, the lyrics in those, arguably, there wasn't that much content, you know, but as regards to what we're talking about. But I think later on, probably, I mean, I already had this sort of knowledge of what was going on in the world, so through music, I guess it was like, probably bands like Conflict, like in the early 80s, Conflict, the London, UK punk band, who were talking about freedom and, you know, the fact that actually politics is really just something to keep people divided and fighting against each other, and actually, like, true freedom is just humanity, human beings, that's what it is. You don't have to necessarily put a left or a right take on it, it's just human beings, that's what really matters, you know. So that kind of, in a sense, that kind of contradicted my, so I was like, yeah, well, I'm political, so I'm automatically always 100% like left wing. But then you come to realise at some point that politics is just a way of putting something on top of human beings that's not always actually necessary. You know, the most important thing, you know, things that have been done on the name of the left, I also actually don't agree with. You know, if people are kept down like that, it doesn't matter what the political system is. It's not something that I would endorse. You know.
How difficult it was for you when you started writing your own lyrics? Because it's difficult to read something and to read lyrics off of the band. How difficult was fun to write way to express yourself?
Well, so the thing is that as I mentioned earlier, I was reading newspapers from a very, very early age. Very actually complex ideas, you know, from very early. So I got a real enthusiasm for language. Obviously the English language, you know, first of all, but the creative writing and stuff. So actually it wasn't that difficult for me. My thing was always, and still is to this day, you know, and I know this is going to sound really critical, and I don't necessarily mean that way, but you read a lot of lyrics, you take a cross-section of bands, and sometimes it's hard to find, you can find original music, but the actual way the lyrics are written can be very samey. You know, it's hard to find, and when I say that, I'm talking not necessarily the subject matter, but the technique of writing, you know. So, if you look at a Napalm lyric sheet, you'll notice that some of it is parody. There's a little bit of comedy in there sometimes, and pathos, and all these different writing styles. Because at least I try to write creatively. Of course, you've got to balance it between getting the idea across and not getting too complex that people are like, what the fuck is he talking about? You know? So yeah, it's very much a balance.
How do you pick up topics to write lyrics about? So first of all, this Fiorentine of Despair was released. There was, I think, something in Nicholas, which was about the disconnecting of phone lines.
Yeah, that was one of Mitch's. Mitch always had this crazy like UFO perspective on things, which is different, but it was also actually in the same field as what I was trying to write. It was just a slightly different perceptive way of approaching it, which is still valid, So.
But in general, how do you pick up general topics you want to write about?
It's not difficult for me, man.
It's too many.
Here's the thing, obviously this applies to, I'm a human being. Everybody's got observations of things around them. So when you have that, the world, it's like a paint palette with 1,000 colours on it. You can do anything.
Let's talk about the driving force behind it, because I read a recent interview with you where you explained that probably the best motivation to write lyrics is empathy, like to get involved in a human life, empathy.
Yeah.
Well, has it ever been so? Like, when I read the older lyrics from the older records, it's just like, to me, it sounds rather like young, angry man than somebody empathic. Did it change or?
No, I mean, as human beings, we change in our intensity down the years. There are some years when maybe we were a little more intense about things. But I'm still angry, but I think anger isn't just about like jumping up and down and shouting. There is other ways to express it. Because I always think of it like this: there's no point in being angry if there's not a solution on the other side. It's like being critical of things. Yeah, sure, you should always be critical, but you should also maybe think about what is the solution. Because I think the idea of living in the world is not to just be in opposition. It's to also offer a way forward, because there has to be an alternative. That's the whole point, to make an alternative, which is not always easy, and not always achievable. But you at least need to have the ideas there, for maybe even, I know this sounds really romantic, one day when the system does collapse and like a new system based on human beings, comes out the other end, so.
What came across my mind when you mentioned conflict in the beginning, what I noticed that is happening in different hardcore communities around the world, that there's been statements that punks and hardcore guys usually denied to take part in elections, and suddenly the whole attitude is going to change. Like the guys from hardcore that have been advising never go to the elections now advising to go to the elections. So is it important to take part in public politics?
Well, that's actually, I would give a neutral answer to that, because again, obviously decades of different civilizations have kind of forced the political system on us in a way. So, I have two viewpoints about politics, Sometimes I'm involved in it, but other times I fucking hate it, to be honest, Because it, like I say, it kind of pushes human beings out of the way sometimes, in order to achieve a political aim, So you completely have the right to not engage in elections, because of course if you believe that actually human beings should have more openly free and democratic institutions like citizens' councils rather than political parties, if you believe that, then of course why should you vote in an election? Why? What's the point? Because then you're just enforcing the very thing that you're hypercritical on, But I also respect people's choice to vote in political elections as well, because nobody's good or bad, if they believe in something. It's just how deeply you look into things and how deeply you wish to kind of undermine what's there now. My personal opinion, I think that the funny thing is that across the world, people kind of divide different countries into, well, yeah, this is that political system, this is ultra-conservative, this is ultra-liberal, this is left-wing, this is that. And really, hanging over the top of that, there's one system, one political thing, and just different kind of shades of it, So then there's an argument for everything collapsing and starting again, you know, citizens' councils, the understanding that nobody should be left behind. There should, you know, in this day and age, in Europe, on the European continent especially, there should be nobody living on the fucking streets, you know, unless they choose to. There should be nobody wondering where the next meal's coming from. There's enough fucking food on the European continent alone in stockpile to feed everybody. You know, so in that situation, politics becomes fucking useless if you can't solve those situations.
Have you ever considered to use the authority you already have, because you are authority in one society, at least for the Latin community, to take part in politics?
Well, here's the thing, I've been asked a few times, but you know, there's one thing about it that bothers me, is that not every politician, because there are some very well-meaning and actually very effective politicians, let's just say that, even though we completely criticise politics, you know. But very often it becomes about ego. So even if the politician in question hasn't driven it in that direction, it can become about a person rather than the actions or what needs to be achieved, you know. So for that reason, I was always like, no, I don't want it to become about me and, you know, what my background and what I've done. I wouldn't want any of that, you know. I mean, I'd just get really pissed off with it, and I'd just say, no, I don't want to do this, you know. And actually, it's the same with Napalm. I mean, obviously being in music, there's always focus on bands and individuals in bands, you know. And I mean, I'm always, like we are today, I'm always willing to talk, like, to people, you know, about stuff. But it's not actually, when you strip it, it's not about me, you know. It's about the ideas and the music, you know, the two things go together. And it's, if anything, it's about Napalm Death. It's not about me. It never was about me, and I never wanted it to be that about me either, you know. So, yeah, sure, I'll always discuss ideas, and like people identify with me, then come on, we can talk about stuff. I mean, Chirpy knows this, you know. We've known each other for fucking years and years and years. But it's about Napalm Death, you know. It's not about one individual, and that goes for any band.
Do you agree with each other in the band?
Not always. Not always. No, he knows that as well. But we make it work, you know, because listening is an important part of things, you know. And I know that sounds like a fucking cliche, and politicians always say that, you know, but it's true, you know. You have to listen to your other band members, you know. Bands where like one band member is always like, yeah, this has to be this, and it never works, man. People just get pissed off, and in the end, there's only so much you take, and just like, nah, I don't need it, you know.
So when you agree to play concert, you say we play that because of lyrics, or the music is more important?
Well, let's put it like this: there are some things that we would not play, you know.
Okay.
So we would not play festivals where there are openly like neo-fascist or old fascist bands. We won't do it, you know what I mean? It's a policy of our band. And
when you put a set list together,
yeah.
You say, because of lyrics, I want to play that, I want to play that. No, music is most important.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. So you mean the set list itself?
Set list, because I want to play that, this is very important lyrics, Barney want to play that.
Actually, no, we don't do it that way. No, we don't, that never comes up. We do basically, when we make a set list together, we make it more from a creative perspective. And what I mean by that is, what I mean by that is, Napalm tours all the fucking time. You know, I mean, you see, we're always like here, there, and everywhere. So I think it's important, and this is not on the lyrical side. This is purely on the creative side, to change the set list, because I see some bands. I might see them 1 year, I might see them 12 months later. It's the same fucking set list. So I remember I saw it 12 months ago.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah, well,
Harmonic Corruption, only one song.
Yeah, sure.
Huh?
Well, no, actually, we've done 2 or 3 songs rotating.
But Suffer the
around,
Children, oh.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but some songs people want to hear, you know what I mean?
I know,
Nazi
this
songs,
is
fuck
another
off. Some of the
story.
children's scum, people want to hear. Yeah.
So this is musically more than
Sure.
lyrically.
Sure, but
Thank you.
But around that, we changed the song. We like rotate different set lists. You know, on this tour, this is a run of 10 dates. We're doing 2 set lists, so it's 2 different ones. You know, so
Suffer the Children.
yeah, sure. But we do other songs of harmony corruption as well. Just try and. But see, when you've got 15 albums, it's like everybody likes something from a different. If they're interested in Napalm Death, you know. So everybody likes, so we try and always fit something in from every like era, you know, or time windows, which is difficult. I mean, you do argue about that stuff. I want to play this fucking song. Yeah, but what about this fucking thing that we haven't done for 6 years, you know? So, yeah.
If you come back to human rights, you have expressed your voice a couple of times to different topics, like gay marriage. You have been involved in helping those English Jews that were jailed in Indonesia.
Yeah, unsuccessfully, but
yeah, but what's actually like, what makes you to decide to get involved in one particular case or to express yourself about a particular topic like this, the gay marriage?
Well,
did they ask you to do, or you just said
no, well, in terms of gay marriage, here's the thing. This shouldn't even be a fucking conversation, you know. This is a human rights issue. If 2 human beings want to do something that's a very natural process, whose business is it to try and stop them? Dude, fuck you, you know what I mean? Go away, you know. It's just like, I never understood, you know, why this is a national issue. It's not even an issue. It's 2 human beings, you know, who want to express their love for each other, and they want something which is entirely their right to do so. So I wasn't asked to give my opinion on that. Or maybe I was in interviews and stuff, but generally, sure, that's my opinion. But it's an opinion like anything else's, you know, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, more specifically, the other thing you mentioned, which is the Indonesian guys that were in jail. Well, I mean, universally, I'm against capital punishment. I don't think it is. It's a revenge tool. That's what it is. It's not a justice tool. It's a revenge tool. It's to say, we've got power over you, so you did this, so we're going to kill you for it. You know, and my thing has always been, well, hang on a minute. State-sponsored murder kills like fucking hundreds of people, thousands of people every year. So what do you do when the state murders people? Do you put the politicians on trial and send them to the death chamber? No, you don't. You know, so why is it that equally individual citizens, human beings, can be sentenced to death for carrying drugs through a border? It's fucking absurd, you know what I mean? So I'm against the death penalty. I don't think anybody has the authority over somebody else to say you must die, you know. That's it. People can agree or disagree with that, but as a human issue, if you're going to talk about equality, that is, I think, is very important.
how much time you spend on keeping yourself up to date with happening in the world?
Oh, you can't fail. Well, you don't need to keep up to date. It's there, like in your ears and in your eyes and everything. You know? So yeah. But it's worth saying that, you know, every sort of 3 or 4 year cycle, people will come up to you generally and go, isn't the world such a fucking fucked up place at the moment? It's like, well, hang on a minute, like 5 years ago it was really no different, except it was just different things that were fucking up. So I don't see it as, people say, yeah, we're at crisis point. Yeah, but it's been that way ever since I've been alive, you know. I mean, go back to 1914, you know, the fucking First World War, which was a terrible human atrocity, you know, and it's, everything is, you know, on different levels, you know, there's always a fucking mess, you know.
Like still reading a lot.
Yeah.
Books or
anything that comes along, you know.
What's your favorite recent video?
There's actually in recent times, I would say, I forget forget the exact title of it. I think it was called Days of Love, Nights of War, or something like that. It's actually like a free thinker's like guide to life, which sounds like a contradiction in itself, you know, but it's like, it's basically, it takes all the institutions that we've become sort of indoctrinated to think, yeah, this is society, you know, this is what you need to do to live in society, and it just blows them apart, you know, and it just says, you know, if I can't remember, it actually talks about, one of the things is animal ownership, you know, and it argues that you shouldn't, I don't know, even some animal rights, like people who consider that disagree on this, but I say that you should never keep animals. Pets should not be domesticated. You know, they should just be free to like roam wherever they need to roam. So that's a particular thing, but that's just one example. So it takes every facet of life and just blows it apart. But it's got comedy in it as well, you know. So it's actually quite fun. Really,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
kind of powerful.
Yeah, and apart from that, what else? Books. Recently. I've actually got it's going to sound really boring actually, I've got like Khrushchev's biography, which is like this fucking thing that I'm just about to read, so that's going to be quite interesting. Because one thing that just as a personal thing, you know, I'm kind of amateur Soviet historian, like Cherby knows, I collect like anything aesthetically connected to like Soviet influenced countries, you know, so whether it's even like knives, forks, plates, working from the time, films from like in Czech, you know, Schwank, what's his name? Yeah, I collect all these films, all different cultural, you know, things, you know, so I'm very much into all that stuff.
We have just finished the 20 minutes, so now it's
We can.
anybody who can ask. No, I mean, let's people
Sure.
guys.
Would you talk about your interaction with trade unions? I read that you helped trade union.
Yeah, myself, I was also a union representative. Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah, actually for musicians,
Yes.
you know, like the Musicians Union, which is, well, as it says really, it's a union for like, whatever you do in music, you know, whatever style, orchestras, rock music, you know, extreme music, whatever, you know.
And I read that you interact with workers' unions also.
Yeah, because actually in the UK certainly, most unions are connected through the TUC, which is Trade Union Council. So to make them with a stronger influence, they're very connected.
Okay, I would like to ask you, what's your personal opinion about Brexit and why?
Good question. Yeah, good question. You know what? Here's the thing, man. There's different ways to answer this. First of all, I think the very idea, this is on an emotional level, we have a certain opinion within the UK, and this goes for any country, that believes that the British, an idea of another British Empire, like Britain being independent, is somehow a good thing. And when you look at the past and the things that brought, I would say, I know this sounds really rude, I would say, don't be fucking stupid, you know what I mean? You know, this whole thing of being, yeah, we're an island, a proud island, so let's disconnect ourselves from like 25 miles across the sea. You're fucking serious, you know what I mean? I mean, me personally, I don't care about identity. I don't need to be, yeah, I'm British, I don't give a fuck. I'm not patriotic, not one piece. You know, human beings are more important than any flag, any country for me, you know, so that's the first thing to say. So I think this whole idea of becoming un-European or separating out is fucking stupid, you know what I mean? That's the first thing to say. The second thing to say, I have not always been the biggest fan of the European Union, in the sense that on the financial side of things, the austerity, the kind of poverty measures against Portugal, Greece, Spain, other countries, I thought was fucking inhumane. You know what I mean? There were people in a European Union country that's supposed to be part of a union. When you're part of a union, you should be looked after by the union. You know, people were fucking starving on the streets. You know, and begging. You know, tons of people. I mean, that's not right, man. You know what I mean? So I'm critical of it in that sense. In another sense, what I would like to see is a socialised European Union where peace is preserved on the European continent, where, again, going back to what we were just talking about, if a country has economic problems and the people are really going through hardships, the other countries should support that country, you know, 100%, you know, should support that country. That's the European Union that I want. And so I want to, if it could be done, I want to remain part of it, but I want to see it reformed, where it's a socialised European Union, not an economic and monetary European Union. That's what I want to see, you know. But I think the idea of the UK coming out of it and being somehow vastly improved, I think it's fucking nonsense. You know what I mean?
For the people.
For the people, yeah, for the people, I think. Certainly in the UK. How it will affect the remaining European Union right now, it's hard to say, you know. But I think in the UK it's going to be pretty weird, you know, for quite some time.
Yes, Barney, thank you so much for being today here. I wonder, how do you see the future of this world? Are you mostly positive or negative about what's happening? And what is the role of the bands shaping this?
You have to be positive, man. You have to, even though you know you're dealing with a lot of negatives. This is what I'm talking about. You have to consider an alternative. You have to consider what comes next. So you always have an element of positivity because you want to see things get to like a better place. You know what I mean? You want things to go there, so you have to be positive. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of negatives right now. You know. Coming back to Europe, you know, one thing that really troubles me is we had a world war fucking 60 years ago, which again, much like the First World War, was fucking atrocious. You know what I mean? The Czech was particularly badly affected. You know, Czech and Poland. You know, I don't want to go there again. You know, and the problem is there are signs in some of Southern Europe and some of Eastern Europe actually. There are very, very hard right fascist movements, you know, operating sometimes on the streets with local government legitimacy. They almost look like brown shirts. You know, they wear very, very like neo-fascist kind of uniforms, and they enforce moral, like sort of moral living, you know, on the population. So I know people that work in like human rights. They tell me like, gypsies, anybody that looks homosexual, you know, anybody with dark skin being fucking harassed on the streets, you know, in some countries in fucking Europe, you know, in 2019. And what worries me is that with this populist rise in certain parts of Europe, I'm really concerned that they're going to push people over the edge. You know, this whole thing against migrants and immigration and stuff, which is blown completely fucking out of proportion, you know. It really bothers me that that's going to cause a flashpoint. It's going to split people down the middle, and it's going to cause conflict, like literally war, you know. And I had relatives, not direct relatives, but friends who went to fight against Franco in Spain, you know, during the 1930s, because of the rise of fascism in Europe. And they didn't need to do. Do you think they wanted to do that? Want to fucking do that, you know, but they saw like humanity collapsing on itself, and they wanted to go do something. I don't want to have to make that choice. You know, I consider myself to be a pacifist, and I want to be a pacifist. I want the conditions to keep me in pacifism, you know, but maybe there comes a point where you go, you know what, if I don't do something, if we don't do something, the world that we live in is going to be taken over by people who want to sort of separate people out under certain conditions, and like it's not a good situation.
But for you, pacifism is, for example, it's to oppose the aggressor, like
Russia attacks Ukraine and Turkey,
Sure.
Turkey attacks Russia.
Sure.
Or like both sides are guilty.
Sure. Well, I think in any situation, you know, I mean, this is the problem, you know. I mean, it's something you reconsider all the time, you know. I used to be, I would use violence, you know, quite readily back in the day. In some of the early tours of America, it was actually trending to be a Nazi, you know. So the first two American Napalm Death tours were fucking miserable. Every night or every other night, we get people coming up going like that in the gigs, and not just one or two people, like fucking 50 people, you know, who potentially have the power to really affect gigs, you know, completely. And we would find ourselves like fighting, like, oh, I didn't want to fight people. I didn't. There was no match up. Oh yeah, let's beat some Nazis. It was nothing like that, you know. It was to stop. These people are fucking bullies. That's what they are.